Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I got a little woodworking repair project to do today. One of the first projects that I ever worked on when I started woodworking was a little table that sits behind my lazy boy chair. And I tend to put my TV remotes and anything I'm snacking on, maybe a drink, nice adult beverage at night for when I'm watching TV. Well, the surface of that table has gotten a little rough over the years, and I want to clean that up. Let me show you what we're talking about. This is the tabletop that I'm talking about, and as you can see, it sits right next to my lazy boy chair, and the place where I put my drink over the years has gotten a little bit stained, and it's a little bit rough. There's some marks on it, and some water rings and stuff like that. I want to take this thing off, take it out in the garage, sand it down till it's just bare wood again, and we're going to recoat this, restain it, and put another polyurethane coating on it. Like I said, this was a very early project. Most often, I work in oak, and so this was just a big piece of wood that I bought that was this way, and I cut it to shape, and I kind of trimmed the edges with a router and all that. But this was, like I said, one of the early projects I made, and it just needs a little bit of help right now. So we're going to take this thing off, take it out in the garage, sand it off nice and smooth, and let's refinish it. Now, one of the things I really want to do with this that I hadn't really figured out at the point I made this table was I want to put a whole bunch of coats of the polyurethane coating on it. At the point I was doing this table, I think there's maybe one or two coats of it, and that's why it's kind of dull. That's why I think we kind of damaged the surface a little bit with the moisture from the drinks that I would have. And I think if I would put a thicker coating on it, first off, it'll be a lot more reflective, a lot more shiny, not a lot nicer looking, but it'll also protect the wood better in the future. So, like I said, I'm going to take the cover off this thing and take it out in the garage, and let's get going on this. Alright, so I got the top off. It's on the workbench out in the garage. I pulled out my orbital sander, and I've got a kind of a medium grit, 120 grit sandpaper pad on the bottom, and I think that's going to do a pretty good job smoothing this off without taking off too much wood. You go too coarse on the sandpaper grit, and you'll actually just dissolve this wood. So this is actually a fairly soft wood, probably a pine or something like that. So I don't need to hit it really hard, but I need to hit it hard enough to take all this off, take the original acrylic coating off, and the stain off of it. So let me show you how that's done. So you can see with just a little bit of work on it, I've actually succeeded in getting everything off. And this is going to be the worst part because this is where the wood damage occurred. So the rest of it's just going to be a matter of taking the finish and the coating off. And I'll catch up with you in that in a little bit. So as you can see, we're coming along real well, getting the finish off and the stain off. And this has only taken probably about 30 minutes or so to get this far. Once I get basically the rough done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on with a finer sandpaper grit, and we're going to really smooth this down and get it nice and flat and smooth and shiny looking. And now another 20 or so minutes have passed by, and I basically got everything off. There's a few little spots that I need to hit again. There's a little bit of residue left here, some over there. I'm going to probably replace the sanding pad with another 120 grit pad and just kind of give this a general work over. But we're getting pretty close there. We got all the well, 99.9% of the stain off. I want to get a little bit more off of it and just make sure that we're really down to bare wood all the way across. But it's starting to look nice, right? All right, I've hit this a little bit more. Got more of the residue of the stain and the coating from before off. And now I think I'm going to hit it with a finer 320 grit and really get it nice and smooth and ready to go. All right, I've spent a whole bunch more time on this piece, and I think we're ready to go on to the next step. Now, as I was kind of working on this, you may recall that there was kind of a pattern that I'd cut into the edges on this that had some corners. And in the end, I decided to route all of that off and just turn it into a kind of a smooth half circle thing. So that should not get dirty as much anymore, and should maybe hopefully help this thing stay looking nice longer. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this coat of the golden oak, which is something I've used throughout the house. That's what the desk is. That's what the table that I built in the living room is. So it kind of ties everything together if you kind of use the same colors over and over again. And I'm a huge fan of this golden oak. So what I'm going to do is apply that now, get it dried off, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so I got the stain coating on it. Basically the stain coating, it's pretty simple. What you do is you just really thickly apply the stain with the grain of the wood. So back and forth this way, get a nice solid coating off of it. Allow some of it to soak in, which will happen, and you kind of go back and forth a few times until it soaks in. And then you get like a rag or something like that and wipe off the excess. And that's just what the wood looks like just with the stain without even the coating. So now over the next, I don't know, day or so, I'm going to be putting a high gloss polyurethane coating on it. Multiple coats, coats after coats after coats. Well, probably at least 5 coats on this thing. Hopefully more, because the more you do, the more glossy it'll do and you'll get, and it'll also protect the wood better. So hopefully we won't get any of the staining that we got last time. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit and we'll come back and apply a polyurethane coat. Alright, so a little time has passed now and the stain has dried to the point where I've decided to put the first coat of the polyurethane coating on here. Now, usually when you're dealing with new wood, as this first layer or first coat of the polyurethane dries, the wood tends to exhale a little bit of air, so you end up with little teeny tiny microscopic bubbles that kind of result in a rough surface. And so usually with new wood you'll have to sand it off with a really fine grit sandpaper to smooth it down, or else you'll never get your wood to be really nice and smooth to the touch. I'm expecting, since this is old wood, it's something, you know, I made this 10 or 15 years ago, that probably all of the outgassing, if you will, from the wood is probably done. So I don't expect that's going to be an issue here, but we're going to give this about an hour to dry, and we're going to come out and feel it, and if it feels nice and smooth, then we'll move on to the next coat. If not, we'll have to hit it with a really fine grit, probably a 400 grit sandpaper, just to kind of smooth it off. But we'll find that out in an hour. I'll see you then. Okay, about an hour has passed. It's nice and dry, And as I was convinced, I don't really have any issues of smoothness, so all the air seems to have already outgassed. So I don't really need to sand this a little bit. I might wipe it with a rag just to kind of smooth off anything that's a little bit rough. But at this point, I think we're ready to put on our next coat. All right, so we got that wiped down and got a second coat on there. It's starting to look really glossy now. It's always going to look a little bit more glossy when it's wet, but ultimately we do want to get it to the point where it's reasonably glossy, so it'll look nice on the table, and also it'll protect the wood underneath. So give this another hour or so to dry, and we'll come back and look at it then. All right, another hour or so has gone by. Second coat looks like it's on really good, nice and smooth. Starting to see a little bit of that gloss on there, which is what we want to see. So let's get on with coat number 3. All right, I got the third coat on. We'll let this dry for a little while and we'll keep pushing on. All right, there's a noticeable difference between layers 2 and 3, and I got 2 more layers to go, so this thing's gonna look fantastic. All right, that's 4 coats. Starting to look pretty good, right? I think 1 more coat will do it, and then we'll maybe be able to even put this thing back together tonight. All right, so that's the finished product on coat number 5. That's the last one I'm going to do. Man, that looks fantastic. Look at it. Look at that glow. It's gonna once it sets up too, it'll provide really good protection for the wood underneath. So hopefully I won't ever have to do this again. It's getting late in the evening at this point, so what I'm gonna do is let this thing kind of dry overnight, and then we'll come back and pick it up in the morning. I'll see you then. All right, so here's the final product. That's how that turned out. Looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Like I said, that's just 5 coats of the acrylic coating there, so looks pretty shiny. It should hold up for a while. Next thing I got to do now is just reinstall it on the table. All right, so I got the top reattached to the table. It's on hinges, and I did that because I thought this would be a great way of having a bunch of storage space for things. I've got like a little trap door in the back that I can keep my remote controls in if I need them. And like I said, there's a lot of storage inside, but honestly, I love the finish on this thing. This thing looks really good. I almost don't want to use it anymore for fear of damaging it, but that is the finished product. I'm happy with how it turned out. I think it looks pretty good, and I think that wraps up this episode. So thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.